The sub 4 meter segment in cars is a segment that's unique to the Indian market. Due to a rather opaque and weird lawmaking, the government has decided that a car under sub 4 meters will be taxed less than a car above 4 meters. Does it make sense? No, it doesn't. But let's be honest, some of the most successful cars sold in India have been sub 4 meter products. Renault has already had a taste of this segment with their Kwid. With its distinctive design, with its unique styling, a great package, it really appealed to customers and was one of the first volume hits for the brand in India. What we have today here is their second attempt at a sub 4 meter product. The Triber here is quite unique. It offers a really well balanced package but in a sub 4 meter size and at a killer price. We're driving it today in Goa to see whether it has the appeal to catch the fancies of the Indian customers, especially in a market that's rather depressed at the moment. If you've seen our first preview video of the Triber, you would know that the Triber, as far as design goes, is actually quite a well done product. There was a problem with the earlier sub 4 meter cars. Most of them were copies of larger cars. In fact, they were just been chopped on to fit into the regulations. So they looked like an unfinished effort rather than last minute thought. But with the Triber, it's been designed from the ground up to be sub 4 meters. And from that perspective, when you look at the car in profile, it looks absolutely well balanced. In fact, to give credit where due, the designers have done such a good job. It actually doesn't look like it's a sub 4 meter product. It looks like it's something slightly larger. And I think that works well for the car. The 15-inch wheels, well, they make the car appear quite balanced. I like this cladding that they've done on the car. It gives us a bit of a SUV crossover kind of a look. The front is of course traditional Renault, so you get big headlights, you get that oversized Renault logo, and the mix of the black plastic and the silver plastic and the chrome, I think that's really well done, because then the chrome is not overdone and yet the car has a very distinct identity. This yellow shade goes well with the car, and the rear also has been broken up quite well. You see, with the tailgate this size, they needed something to break the monotony, and with these large flowing tail lamps and that big 3D Triber badging and the logo again, I think overall Renault's designers had done a really fine job given the considerations, or rather the limitations they had. The interior design of the Triber is also quite functional. You see, this is a small 3-row crossover, people mover, whatever you want to call it. And for that, it's priced extremely well. In fact, the prices they start at 5 lakhs and they top out at 6.5 lakhs ex-showroom. So for that, it's a lot of package for the money. And the quality levels, keeping the price in mind, is actually quite nice. It's actually quite decent. It feels well put together, feels well engineered, and everything works well. You've also got the basics like in the upper trim level that the car that we're driving. You've got twin airbags, you've got ABS, you've got this touchscreen multimedia display which works really well. It responds well. The interface is quite good. The only problem that I have with the touchscreen display is the fact that in direct sunlight it's not really visible. So maybe a slightly better mounting position, maybe with a bit more shade on top would have been much better. The screen would have looked better, but otherwise it works well. The air conditioning works well. It's also got lots of practical touches. So you get this cool box here which you can use to store your water or your drinks to keep them cool. You get 2 glove boxes here to store your documents and other knickknacks. So all that, and just the general feeling of the seats, the plastics, feels like a good item. Is it luxurious? Is it really fancy? No. But you have to see, at this price, it's a functional car. It's a car that does the job, and at that, the Triber fares quite well. If you see the positioning of the Triber, of course, it's not only about driving, but it's more about the practicality that the car offers. And in this, I'm in the second row. You can see there's enough leg room for me. I'm 5'9", so I have enough spare leg room to go. This row is right now in the backmost position. I'll come to that later. And as you can see, like I said, the stepped roof, it gives you a lot of headroom. There's sufficient amount of headroom. So even if you're 6 feet 2, I think you could fit in here quite comfortably. Now, this row is adjustable to make sure that even passengers in the third row have space. So I can just slide this forward and backwards depending on how tall the passenger behind me is. And this is also important because unless this is possible, the third row of the Triber would have been superficial. But I'm going to slide this to the front, get into the third row and see how much space I actually have. One more interesting touch as far as practicality is concerned, the Triber comes with separate air vents here for the second row and the third row, which means that no matter which row of the car you're positioned in or sitting in, you still get decent AC cooling. Now, given the size of the Triber, which is, like I said earlier, sub 4 meters, there are a few limitations with the car as far as interior space is concerned. You see, you really can't defeat the laws of physics when it comes to dimensions. Sub 4 meters is sub 4 meters, and how much ever you can maximize the interior space, The third row is something that is going to be challenging for full-size adults. As you can see, with the second row in the fully forward position, I can sit here comfortably. There's enough knee room, there's enough leg room. Of course, headroom is no problem at all. But if the second row is pushed back, then obviously I don't fit in. So that's going to be a problem. Secondly, with the suspension mounts being here for the rear suspension, the width in the third row is also lesser. So at most, you can fit in 2 adults here. Children would be much better, but full-size adults, with the second row pushed forward, yes, a possibility. With the second row fully back, not a possibility at all. But I suppose at that price, if practicality is your primary concern, at that price, the Triber is still a very good package. And I think for small journeys, even with the second row pushed back a little, I could fit in here. On longer journeys, that might be a bit of a problem. Now we've seen that the Triber has many positives going for it. Despite being 4 meters, since it's a clean sheet design, it looks pretty good. It actually looks larger than it is. It's also fairly practical given the size and given the price bracket. It's got decent space for all 3 rows of seating. It's also practical in the sense that Renault's offering a lot of options, like the last 2 seats. The third row can be taken out very easily, can be put back in, so you can get many seating formations. Let's say you want to transport 4 people and 2 large bags to the airport run. Perfect. You can take out the 2 seats. It gets quite a bit, 625 liters of boot space if you take out those seats, and which means that fitting bigger bags is not a problem at all. Accordingly, if you have even more luggage to roam around with or to transport, you can fold the second row and you can put in more luggage. So all that aspect, I think Renault's really worked on based on the European experience, where cars are used in many formats, where a single car is used for many things. They've really applied that to the Triber, and especially at that cost. I think that's fantastic. But what is it like to drive? Well, the Triber is based on what Renault says is a brand new platform. I think it's a derivative of the CMF-A platform that underpins the Kwid, but they say it has about 80% new parts. So for them, it's a brand new platform. It's powered as of now only with a 1-litre 3-pot engine. It puts out about 71 bhp, 96 Nm, and is paired to a 5-speed manual transmission. Now you see, before the car was launched, there was a lot of sort of concern about whether the 1-litre would be enough for the Triber to drive around. Whether the extra weight, it weighs just under 950 kilos because of the size and the extra seats, would lug it down, would it be fuel efficient? Now we can't really comment on fuel efficiency right now. It's a short test that we are doing, but I can tell you it is actually quite nice to drive. The engine's been tuned very well for low-end torque and for the mid-range. So driving around town or driving around even at medium speeds, like under 100 kilometers an hour, the engine's absolutely fine. It actually works quite well. It's decently refined, and with the low-end torque, you can just keep it in 2nd gear, 3rd gear and 4th gear and just drive around all day. Sure, if you go into the upper reaches of the RPM, if you're really revving the engine, because it's a 3-cylinder, it gets a little trashy. And I think because the Renault engineers have focused on putting the power at lower RPMs, it doesn't have much pull at higher RPMs. So any speeds above 100, I think, are going to be a laborious task. But to the average target customer, to the customer who's going to be looking at the Triber, drivability and fuel efficiency is more of a concern, and in that the Triber does really well. I'm also happy with the steering because it has a decent amount of feel, and it's good to see electric steerings have feel. I mean, it feels so much nicer to drive than a dead steering, which doesn't really tell you what you're doing. And of course, like any other Renault, the ride is very well sorted out. We've driven it on narrow, winding roads. It's raining, it's wet, we've got some bad roads, and the ride really hasn't given me anything to complain about. It's perfectly set up like most Renaults are. And the handling, well, you know, this is not really a car you're going to throw around every day, and it's got a higher center of gravity. But considering the use the Triber is going to get, I think it feels quite good. It's stable even at 3-digit speeds, and the in-cabin NVH levels are also quite under control. Are there negatives with the Triber? Yes, of course. You know, like all cars, Triber also has its own drawbacks, and 2 things really stand out for me. One, like I said earlier, the touchscreen and direct sunlight, I think that's a design mistake. That's something that should be rectified whenever in the future the manufacturer can. 2, I think the engine could be slightly more refined at higher revs, and it could have a slightly better power delivery at higher revs. It's really good in the low end and the mid end, which only means that you feel that lack of power even more. But at this price and given the use that it's going to take, most Tribers would be used as, I still think it does the job. It's just something that can be improved upon. What I also like is that after the Quid sort of debacle that they had in the safety tests, the Triber comes equipped with dual airbags as standard on all versions, and the top of the line version that we are driving comes with 4 airbags, driver, passenger and side airbags. So that's also a good thing, with the increasingly tougher regulations coming in, with the customers also on the second hand becoming very, very aware. These are things that every brand should focus on, and I think Renault is really focusing on that. Renault's renewed focus towards customers. This looks like a product that's been designed very well. It's been designed keeping the customer requirements in mind, and given that it has really nice ride setup, the engine works really well. It's really practical. Sure, there are a few flaws. The last row, well, you have to adjust it a little bit to make sure you fit in, a full-size adult fits in properly. Secondly, also with all 3 rows in use, there's virtually no boot space, but that's okay. I mean, it's a sub 4 meter car after all, so that those are compromises you have to live with. And most importantly, the pricing at 5 lakhs to 6.5 lakhs and the quality levels and the overall experience of the car, I think the Triber is a very, very commendable product. And if you're looking for something that's slightly different from the normal, priced very affordably and still gives you a lot of options, looks cool, is nice to drive, is nice to sit in, I think the Triber does very well for itself.